Hi everybody, and welcome to the May installment of What's My House Worth on the Needham channel. My name is Rob Tickton. This is Ryan McDonald. We're with Hawthorne Real Estate. We are a design build company. We also provide real estate brokerage services. Today we're going to be talking about the April sales data on casual May Day. Casual May Day. Also going to be talking about a real estate market that might be springing some leaks.
Yeah.
Is that too strong?
Maybe it's taking on water.
Okay, well, either way, you might have heard it here first. Anyway, before we get into too much of the goods, I guess we should start like we always start, and that's with the sales data for the previous month. In this case, that's the month of April. Ryan, as you look at these numbers, anything popping off the page?
I mean, Rob, the numbers actually, paint a pretty solid picture.
Okay.
I mean, 19 sales, that's pretty consistent with last April, 2015, we had 21 sales. The difference is the average list price and the average sale price, both down under $1 million, whereas last April, those were both comfortably over 1.1. Mm-hmm. So then, talk about 100 homes selling at 100% of their list price and 98% of their original list prices. Those numbers are very solid.
Yeah, solid, but you should soak them in because we might not be seeing too much of that going forward.
Right, and there's a few, as we get into the sales mix, there are a few of the homes that really contribute to those percentages being so good.
Yep.
Average price per square foot of $372, that's a high number. Okay, great. That's up from last year, it was at $344 for the same month. Last month of this year was at $385, so down a bit from last month, but up over last year.
Yep.
And our average days on market of 61, still pretty good. That's 2 turns. That's 30 days is a turn. That's 2 months. That's pretty solid, and it's down from 74 of April of last year. So those numbers, in and of themselves, I think tell a story that may not necessarily reflect the numbers that we talk about at the end of the show on the what's on the market snapshot slide. So, between now and then, we're going to fill you in with some detail, but.
Right, so keep watching, I guess.
What's going on?
I think another thing, if we're talking about themes for this show, it's not only what's going on with this market and should we start to keep an eye on things, but it's also, you hear location. I think with this month's sales data, it's also timing.
Yeah.
Because I think what we're going to see is people who jumped in early into the spring market captured some of the momentum from last year,
right,
where we're not maybe going to be seeing that in months to come. Anyway,
I thought the theme of the show was casual May Day.
Well, there's a lot of themes, and when you have a show on monthly, sometimes you got to bring them all together.
Okay,
so
that's fine. I just wasn't aware. Usually we go over the themes.
Listen, Ryan, the theme is it is what it is.
Okay.
That's ultimately the theme. So
right.
Trailing 6 months, let's take a look at how...
I feel like Kelly Ripa.
Well, it might end up that way if you don't watch it. I'll go to the Needham Channel News. Trailing 6 months, and we can see the trends, and it's a climb, albeit a very slow one from March to April.
Yeah, it's a bit of a hill, if anything, a bump.
Yeah, but I mean, between 12 and 23, those numbers obviously going to go up,
right,
as the spring market kind of shows the data. Listen, a slow spring market or whatever it may be, and we're not saying it's going to be slow necessarily, but it still is a spring market nonetheless. So those numbers are going to go up. April historical sales. So the last 6 years, how does 19 sales stack up? And I would say not too well.
No, it's the lowest of the last 6 years. But again, it doesn't necessarily mean we're not going to have a lot of closings in the spring. I think we might still have a lot of. I think our sales numbers are going to be similar as far as quantity.
Right.
It doesn't mean that there's the same amount being absorbed with respect to what else is available.
Right. Inventory, I think, is what you're getting at.
Right.
Okay.
Convolutedly.
So, yes. Very, very good. So let's take a look at these 19 sales. We're going to start off low and work our way up. 76 Garden is. We usually don't start off on Garden when we start this show off. It's pretty good. It's like. We like to say a sneaky walk to town location, right?
This is absolutely a walk to town. I think it's the low seller of the month because it's a 2-bedroom. So you're talking about 1,100 square feet. There's additional square footage in the basement. It's a little dated. Good lot though. It's just under 11,000 square foot lot. So, but you've got a home you're getting in the 5s at that location. Could this be a land sale?
Yeah, well, and interestingly, it sold for $535,000 back in 2005. So not great from an investment perspective. You said it's a good lot, good size-wise. The configuration a little funky there in the backyard.
Yeah, and there's some train.
True. Next up is a location that I would imagine most of our viewers are familiar with. It's a high visibility location. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, yeah, and even more so now that there's so much been cleared around it. This is right on the corner of Kendrick and Hunting.
Yes.
It is right near the work that's going on to add another access ramp to 128. This house was flipped, remarkably enough. I think both you and I were cautiously pessimistic about the fortunes of the flipper.
Yeah.
So he bought the house for $330, which in and of itself is like, you'd say, okay, $330 in Needham, you're like, wow. But given its location, we thought there was a lot of risk there, and to be able to sell this in a relatively short period of time. And we bought this in June of 2015, has already sold it in April of 2016. Don't know how much really went into the house, but selling it for what he asked for it, so you have to believe, that the flipper did okay.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that it's a 20,000 square foot lot. I would not have guessed that.
Right.
But
does 128 count in the lot square footage?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
All right.
But that's a good question. Apt.
Fair question.
50 Sterling Road is our next listing. This is what jumped out at me about this listing is, when there's an offer deadline on the listing sheet and it goes under agreement in 3 days, you think it's going to go for at least asking or more. But this one goes for 30 grand under asking.
Yeah, well, maybe it was the only offer.
Maybe.
Which, I think probably is the likely scenario here. But this is an interesting comp for Kendrick.
Right.
Right? So here you have, Kendrick was turnkey. Everything was done. It was, for all intents and purposes, a renovated home. The square footage is relatively the same. Sterling sells for $15,000 more, and how much? The locations are totally different. Sterling is in a neighborhood; it's in the valley. Kendrick is on the corner, basically on the highway. You have a house that's turnkey versus a house that's dated, but in a much better location.
Right. Both big lots, although Sterling might have been sold to a builder.
So you think, okay, could be a land sale.
Could be a land sale.
Okay.
Not confirmed,
Sure.
but could be.
Sure.
But
Right.
nonetheless, even if it wasn't, it would
Yeah,
probably sell close to that price anyway.
Right. That's a good point. It's land value and its house value are very similar in this case.
Yes, agreed. Staying with the number 50, our next listing is 50 Meeting House Circle. This is right off of Central. Did you see when this one went under agreement, Ryan?
I did not, Rob.
Okay, so this one, it says on the bottom there, this property is being sold as a short sale.
Oh.
This went under agreement in January of 2015.
Yeah. Wow. That's a long time ago.
That's a long time ago. If you're buying a house in a short sale, I think the lesson here is that you want to be patient.
Right. And how many short sales do we see, A, in Needham, and B, in this price point?
Yeah.
So to get to a point where you're in a short sale, you're borrowing, but when did this house ever go underwater? That's my question.
Well, I will say for the buyer, it was worth the wait because since 2002, there have been 7 houses to sell on Meeting House, and this one is the lowest priced of the 7. So how about that?
Yeah, I'd be interested. I would love to hear the history behind this and how this became a short sale because, like I said, the property values haven't decreased. So at what point were you getting a mortgage that was
right?
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Kept taking loans against your equity. 1081 Greendale Avenue. We can put this next fact into something that may only interest me.
Okay.
But you have the front yard picture that looks like a fairly brisk but nice, not nice, but dry day.
Okay.
And then the rear picture, did you notice it was
very
snow covered?
Very snowy.
It was snow covered.
Yeah, but Rob, people have heard you say on this show many times, if you're thinking about putting your house on the market, don't wait until February 15th to take the pictures. Take them in the fall or take them at a time where you have outdoor pictures that'll work.
So can I amend it?
Okay.
Take backyard pictures too.
Right. Right. Just don't take just one picture.
Right.
Okay,
I appreciate the effort. Don't get me wrong.
Right. Well, it's someone who is taking you very literally.
Yeah.
So,
right.
All right.
So listen, live and learn.
Okay. So when that house is ready to be sold by wherever that person's living now,
Let's get a backyard
they'll know.
picture.
So so this one.
Sorry.
Back to the things that interest maybe people other than just you. You had an updated kitchen, so it's about putting your money where it counts. Updated kitchen. That pays off. We know. Bathrooms were a little dated. It's a nice yard, even though it's only 7,400 square feet. The walkout basement with a family room and office, and also worth mentioning, this is a section of Greendale that is buffered between Greendale and 128 by the valley. So there's parts of Greendale where you look across the street, you have you might have 128 very close to you. This is not one of them. It has the whole valley between it and 128. So
That helps.
that's not a bad spot on Greendale for
Right.
sure.
Okay, ready to move on to the next one?
Why not?
I feel like we've had a lot of Emerson action recently for some reason. Is that
Okay.
just me? It seems
Maybe.
like there's been a lot of activity.
Not
on
quite
Emerson.
hitting Laurel activity,
No,
but okay.
no siree, Bob. Although it's a smaller road, but 28 Emerson Avenue is our next listing. This one is so it's sold in 2011. Did you see this? For 520,000
It's not a bad little.
return.
Yeah,
And I
not
mean,
bad.
it didn't look like a whole lot was done
No.
over those 5 years. So
No, I think
so
it was
good for the seller.
well-maintained, yeah, well maintained, move-in condition. The listing sheet says it all. Leads to a quick sale at asking. It was well priced. I think this is as cut and dry of a deal as you're gonna get.
Yeah, a win-win.
Yeah.
Maybe some would say.
Right.
We're going to go on to, I don't know about greener pastures, but bigger pastures.
Bigger?
Our next listing is a 1-acre lot located on Charles River Street. The number is 92 Charles River Street.
Yep.
And this one is a really big lot, narrow, really deep. And this is located between Central and South.
Yeah, this is a land sale,
Yeah.
Rob, and it's a candidate for me for the seller. You know, I mean, like you said, it's a big lot, but you know, there's comps right in the immediate vicinity that would draw some risk to this as a developer, unless there's a buyer attached to it on the back end. So
I hear you, Ryan.
I looked at it and I was a little bit surprised. You know, it's a lot of money to build a house to sell there.
Yeah.
And I like the highlight on a well-maintained street. You don't see that much.
No.
I mean, streets were maintained generally the same.
Yeah, I guess.
They're town streets.
Maybe
I mean, it's not a public way, or I mean, a private way.
it's not a bad thing to be on a well-maintained street.
I guess.
Common,
I guess.
but not necessarily a bad thing.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on to another well-maintained street.
I mean, aren't they all?
I know, I could potentially say that for all of them. 101 Galen Road is the next listing. This one was on the market for quite a while, Ryan.
It was, Rob, 208 days. I think we can point to its original list as at least one of the culprits for its long sales cycle.
Okay.
And if you look into it, and this had 5 price changes, but what got to be frustrating for the seller is it went under agreement in 9 days at 849. And then the deal didn't end up closing.
Ouch.
Maybe it didn't appraise. And it went down to, it had some price reductions and ultimately closes at 730. One other thing to note, it listed at 1981 square feet. Public record has it at 1239, but that's not uncommon for this style of house to not include the lower level. But what I was looking at, Rob, and when it comes to the prices, I mean, if you look back a year and you look at houses, this one is under 2,000 square feet of living space. The lot size is under a quarter acre. Look back a year, there's been 71 sales of houses that are under 2,000 square feet of living space and under 10,000 square feet of land.
Yep.
And only 5 of those have sold in the 8s. Right?
That's not a lot.
No, so 5 out of 71 is not a lot.
Okay, interesting. Good fact, Ryan. Let's you ready to move on to the next slide?
Yeah.
All right, 26 Gordon Road, and something tells me we're working with a little bit of a segue here.
Oh, this is one of the 5.
Oh, I get it now.
So as much as when you're going back to Galen, when you're pricing Galen, you might say, all right, if we're pricing this at 849, that's, you're not in good company as far as the market has been, given your size and your lot size, et cetera. Gordon, on the other hand, goes out at 819 like gangbusters, sells in 3 days, gets asking, and is smaller and on a smaller lot. And Gordon, other than being walk to town, which Gordon is between
Webster
and
Bradford.
Bradford. Thank you. But Gordon needs some work. I mean, Gordon is a little dated. 3 beds, 1.5 baths. It's like I said, it's 1,700 and change square feet. So I mean, there's some work to do at Gordon, and you're paying at the absolute top of what a house with those criteria has been proven to be worth, given the rest of the market.
And this also starts to get into this timing thing that I talked
Right.
about as we look at the next listing, which is 99 Mary Chilton Road, and we're getting into this little cluster of listings, Ryan, where these are houses that went on the market in February,
Yep.
when the spring market was starting early because of the moderate winter we had, and it appeared as though we were going to go right from last spring into this spring because these houses were coming on. Look at this one, goes on for $839 and sells for almost 20 grand over ask. I don't think you or I were blown away necessarily by this listing.
Right.
Right? But it seems like it fetched a number that it might not have fetched if it went on the market, say, in
Tomorrow.
Yeah, in tomorrow.
Right. Right. I mean, I agree, and it goes under agreement in 5 days. I mean, there's certainly some positive characteristics. Mary Chilton is the last step before you get to Wellesley.
It borders on Olin Woods.
It borders on Olin Woods. It's on the outside looking into Olin Woods.
Right.
It's,
Although some might disagree.
It's the distant uncle. But it's got, it's a walkout basement, it butts conservation, it's on right near a cul-de-sac, so it's got a lot of those positive attributes.
Yes.
But, as you said, I think this timed the market very well.
Yes, that
got
time
out before the the rush of inventory that we'll get to shortly.
And likewise for 137 Meadowbrook.
Definitely likewise. If
this
you can
went
put
on
a
within
likewise-er
yes,
on the end of likewise,
We're
yeah,
likewizing this
for
like
sure.
crazy. So 137 Meadowbrook is the next listing. This had, I believe, approximately 6 offers when it went on.
It was the only game in town.
It was the only game in town.
Yeah.
And then everybody flocked to it, and then other things started to come on, and the demand was never quite the same as it was for Meadowbrook. So that's a good number, 870 for that house. You and I both had a chance to walk through that. Any other comments on that before we move on to the next one?
I like the lot, and I like the nice deck out the rear.
All right.
Some work to do inside the house, but you know what? Great. So what?
All right, so we're making a big leap here. We're going from 870 to well north of $1 million for the next listing. That's 218 May Street. My take on this one, another one we both walked through, that while it sold for over $100,000 less than the original list price, I still think the sellers should be delighted by that number.
Yeah, I think it was maybe on a little bit higher than it ought to have been, and it's easy for us to sit here and say when given the spread between the list and the sale price.
Yes.
But in digging deeper into it, Rob, yeah, I mean it's listed as a 4-bedroom, but functionally it's a 3-bedroom house. 2 bedrooms upstairs, a bedroom downstairs, another bedroom downstairs. That's one of their other living rooms. So it was used as an office. It's where its best use is from a floor plan perspective. There isn't a master. There's a nice bathroom on the second floor. It's not necessarily a master suite because it's also shared by that other bedroom, but it's accessible from the master, and it's new, it's redone, it's very nice. The kitchen's nice. It opens up to a nice sitting room. There's a lot to like about it, but I like it a lot at 107.5. I didn't love it at 1.2.
Right. Sold for $775,000 back in 2010. Next listing, 28 Mercer Road. This was a redevelopment project. Another fairly high visibility location.
Yeah,
Right?
definitely. This one is, you can see it from Webster. It's as you're driving through the Heights, it'll be on your left and you're heading away from Highland. This is a cool house. I mean, it was originally like the main house on a larger property that's since been parceled out. House dates back to 1871. It's been totally gutted, and I like the price. And I think what's interesting for me, at least, is several years ago we built a house on Park Ave, which is the street that's right abutting, and this house was directly behind the house we were building. And at any given time, there might have been 500 bikes in the yard at this Mercer house. So,
all right. Well, hopefully that trend will change with the new owner.
The bike situation has changed. So, but good for it. So, nice. Cool house. Nice to see it restored and kept and maintained, and now somebody else is going to enjoy it.
All righty. And somebody else is also going to enjoy 11 Gage Street, which is our next listing. And this one, Ryan, happens to be my deal of the month.
Looks like the seller enjoyed 11.
For the seller, interesting because when I walked through this house and I saw what it was listed for, my instinct was this house is overpriced, and sure enough, it goes for $40,000 over. So my first, or I guess second reaction is this has to be the deal of the month for the seller, and so I started to dig into it a little bit as we prepared for the show, which we spend countless hours doing, of course.
Right.
And I'm looking and I'm like, well, wait a minute, maybe I'm wrong. This house has a lot of things going for it. It did have a lot of square footage. It was on a 13,000 square foot lot. It had 4 beds, 3 baths. It walked to town, so maybe I was off. And then it occurred to me there was one thing that I was missing, and that's the square footage on the listing sheet says 3,200 square feet, but the square footage on the first and second floor is 2,400 square feet.
Okay.
And so it's not as big as the listing sheet makes it seem like it is. On top of that, the house I feel like is a little on the tired side, and I think at the end of the day, whoever's buying this house is going to end up putting quite a bit of money into it, and I don't think that it's going to be worth, at that point, what they're into it for. So that's why it's my deal of the month for the seller.
Those are compelling reasons.
Thanks, Ryan. Quite a story.
Yep.
Similar kind of in a few ways is 22 Oakland Avenue, similar in the sense that it's also walk to town, and it's also has that old world charm.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right? Now, you like this You were
Well-
going to say that you like this location. And also, this is, on paper, it's only 200 square feet bigger than Gage, but it feels like it's twice the size.
It does, and I thought this was a better buy than 11 Gauge.
Yes, me too.
They're very similar in price. I mean, this one, I like the location a little bit better. It abuts the tennis club in the rear. It's right, convenient to town and the Heights. It has some updates, has a master suite, a finished third floor, which adds a lot to this property, I think. And also, Rob, one of the better front stooping porches you're going to find.
Yeah, I really like a good front stooping porch. I'll
Yeah.
tell you that right now. That and a 3-car garage, as our viewers know. 34
Oil
Newell.
ones.
Excuse me?
Sorry, go ahead.
That's all right. 34 Newell Avenue is our next listing, and this again came on at a pretty good time.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I thought the house was pretty cool. Had some cool things going for it.
Unique.
But I can just tell by the inflection of your voice, Ryan, that you think that number's a little on the high side.
I just was a little surprised. That's all. I mean, 4 days on market. Clearly, there was a lot of interest, and and don't get me wrong, we're not all doom and gloom here. We're still seeing pockets of pretty good interest. And Newell is walk to town. It's a quiet street. And this house is relatively new. I can't remember the year that it was built, but I think it was in the late 90s.
Yes.
Finished basement. It just surprised me that it went for $60,000 over in 4 days. That's all.
That's fair.
Yep.
76 Booth Street is our next listing. We're starting to get into some new construction here, Ryan. This one kind of in the corner there of Honeywell and Central.
Yep.
Right, tucked away is Booth Street. Good sized lot, sloping upwards, which we're not huge fans of on this show, from the street.
Right, but I like this one. It's $39.50. It's not an oversized house. You hear a lot of the talk about new construction. This one I think fits the lot. It's 15,000 square feet. It's a 4,000 square foot house. I think it works. One thing I did notice though, Rob, is the house was very nicely staged, right? But it wasn't nicely photographed. So you're gonna go that extra mile, spend the money to stage it, spend a little bit more and take some nice pictures and really show it in its best light. And I think that would go a long way towards getting people to the door because the staging was nice.
Ryan, what do professional pictures cost, would you say? Estimate?
I mean, you're looking at between $200 and $400 depending on the photog.
$200 to $400, okay. So that's significantly less than staging.
Right.
All right, good. Good to know. Good information, Ryan.
Thanks.
Way to be ready. Can we just look at that? I want to look at that slide one more time.
To get my sheet back?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I think we're done looking at that one. I want to look at the next slide. That's what I want to look at.
Well, we were going there anyways.
I guess it's safe to say I got Pine Grove and Booth confused. That can be the only explanation.
Okay.
Anything you want to
this one, look at the price is about the same, but look at the square footage.
It's huge.
Booth was 4,000 square feet. This one's 5,300. And
6 baths.
6 baths. Yeah, rarely do you see the baths
Exceed the beds?
exceed the beds, but and I like the hers and his custom walk-in closets. It reminds me of my brother who would insist upon calling it a jelly and peanut butter sandwich.
Oh, that's unacceptable.
Jelly and peanut butter.
You sure he didn't do it just to drive you crazy?
I don't know. He's probably driving his family crazy with it at this moment. With jelly and peanut butter.
Maybe the whole family calls it that.
Maybe they call them hers and his custom walk-in closets too.
Only one way to find out. Yeah, we'll wait till after the show.
Right.
All right. I think we're going to try something a little strange here. Let's go back to that slide for a second. I want to point something out. See where it worked out after all.
Okay.
So let's look at the specs at 165 Pine Grove Street. I'm keeping the guys in the control room on their toes for sure.
They're still in there?
That's a great question. Oh yeah.
Yep, there they are.
So 165 Pine Grove Street. So there's two things I want you to look at. Okay. I want you to look at the sales price, and I want you to look at the square footage.
Got it.
Okay. So
Right.
139 versus 5,300 square feet.
Yes.
Square feet. Excuse me.
Okay, sure.
So go to the next listing sheet, which is 109 Arch. I mean, you want to talk about a significantly higher sales price and less square feet, right?
Yes.
And not to mention less bathrooms,
Right.
right? So it's interesting how what could make a house, Ryan, is my question, sell for $345,000 more than the previous one.
Well, it's 150 gajillion% location in this case.
Nice.
And this is a location-driven sale on Arch, but also one thing you got to know about the sale of 109 Arch is that 1.735. That price reflects a lot of custom upgrades that the buyer did during the sales process. So the buyer came in at a point during the process. We actually represented the buyer, Rob, so I don't know if you're familiar with that. But we negotiated a lot of upgrades into the house, which were part of the value, and the value therefore increased. But on its own, the location, I think, of Arch over Pine Grove and Booth is going to command a higher price. And I can't speak necessarily to Pine Grove and Booth, but I can speak to Arch because I know it was done at a very high level. So I think it's a fair price for Arch. I think it's just maybe more when you look at these side by side, you got to identify everything that goes into the whole package. And the buyer at Arch is definitely getting what they're paying for.
Well, I think it's so maybe it's not all timing. Maybe it is a little bit location too.
Right.
Right.
And casual May Friday.
In casual, yeah. There's a lot going on right now.
Those are our themes. We're just recapping them for you.
All right. So going back to another really important theme, let's take a look at the market snapshot, and we can see some very kind of telling information as we unfortunately start to gaze into the future and not necessarily love what we see.
And
so
this is the doom and gloom section of the show.
I mean, it's really, I feel like the first two lines of it, Ryan, kind of tells us everything we need, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have keep in mind we're looking at year over year. We have 105 active single families right now. 104 though, actually we had one go under agreement late last night, versus 67 at this time last year. I mean, it's not quite double, but it's enough to be significant. And when you think about, okay, what's the mix, we're looking at, you know, the average listing price is almost 1.5 compared to almost 1.4 a year ago. So it's higher end homes contributing to more on the market and contributing to a longer sales cycle. So we start just talking about, are there enough buyers to absorb all of these high end homes? And that's really the concern I would have as a seller. And then we've had discussions on this show and obviously in the office as well as about, pricing. Looking at last year, looking at 2014, and seeing some of these spreads between list price and sale price in the positive, that doesn't necessarily mean you should go out and list your house at, an inflated price because you think others have gotten it. As we always say, Rob, can't do what?
You can't overprice a house.
I mean, you certainly can overprice a house.
You can't underprice a house.
Let's try it again. You can't do what?
You can't underprice a house.
But you sure can
overprice a house.
And you don't want to be the one that does that because you end up losing your momentum and you'll drive your days on market and it just doesn't help your net proceeds.
Yeah, that's a great point. Anything else you wanted to point out there on the market snapshot?
I mean, just one thing that may be a positive is you do have 101 homes under agreement, right? So there's still, versus 91 last year. So there's still, like we're talking about, the sales numbers as far as quantity are still there. So it's not like buyers are leaving the market. Mm-hmm. You have a similar amount of people that are in Needham looking for houses that there is still that demand, but we don't want to just overstate the demand such that you're putting on, double the inventory because you're not getting double the buyers. You're usually the same amount of buyers, but now there's just more inventory.
All right, very good. So we'll obviously be keeping our eyes, all four of them, on that going into next month's show. Listing picture of the month, let's take a look at that and see if we're convinced that we want to buy this property. Ryan, are you sold on it?
Nope.
Why?
And it's because I don't know what it is, Rob.
Oh, I think it's a closet in a bureau.
From what angle though? Like where's the photographer standing?
I don't know.
Are they in the closet?
I don't know.
And I don't get it.
Yeah, it's interesting.
See it.
Yeah, okay.
But all right.
So Ryan, let's just say hypothetically somebody wants to call into the show, or I'm sorry, more specifically, call one of us, and they have a question. They want to know what their house is worth.
Okay.
They want a clarification on because they don't understand how I didn't understand how you couldn't underprice a house.
I was hoping they're going to cut that part out.
Yeah, or maybe I just got my words confused there.
Probably.
For a split second. But how would they get in touch with us?
Easy, Rob. They can call us anytime, 781-707-6564. Mm-hmm. Or you can email us at rob.ryan@hawthornre.com.
And?
Or, again, we say every month, why aren't people following us on Twitter?
It's amazing.
Really?
The numbers are climbing, but not nearly like we thought they would.
Right. And that's simply at Hawthorne_WMHW.
All right, so that will do it for this month's installment. Thank you for joining us. Will it be a casual month next month?
I hope so. It's very comfortable.
Only one way to find out. Yeah. In the meantime, have a great day, everybody. We'll see you again real soon.